Everyone. Thank you for joining us at a free webinar today. We will be demoing Sabre ETO, the custom solution for Microsoft Business Central in manufacturers. We estimate that today's webinar will take up about an hour of your time, including some time at the end for Q&A. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand after the live session. All attendees will receive a follow-up email after the webinar is complete with a link to access the presentation. In the chat, you'll find links to our social media and website as well as a link to our 30-day free trial of Sabre ETO available in Appsource. With that being said, I'd like everyone to submit questions through the question panel during the session or wait until the end for the Q&A. Please remember to stay muted during the session. Now I'd like to introduce you to Rob Jolliffe, President of Sabre Limited.
Thanks, Caitlin. Hey, everybody. Thank you for attending this webinar. I'm going to be talking today about Sabre ETO, which is a product that Sabre Limited developed specifically for the engineer-to-order business. So if what you're seeing on the screen right now looks kind of like, oh, that's something I'd make, meaning the robot and the assembly cell, then this is probably the webinar for you. A little bit about Sabre. We are an exclusively manufacturing-oriented Microsoft Dynamics Business Central partner. We founded the company in 1998, became a Dynamics ERP partner in 2008. Before that, we were more of a manufacturing consulting firm. We introduced fixed fee pricing in 2017, which is way ahead of the curve for other companies who are now doing that. There are some companies who do fixed fee implementations. We have focused on remote deployments for many, many years now, and we're considered a market leader by Microsoft. We're the manufacturing partner that other partners hire. That's a good sort of tagline that I like to give, because we do work with a lot of other Microsoft partners who are looking for assistance, and we're very collaborative with them. One of the things that we've done is we've applied lean principles to develop a unique fixed fee model, and I have myself personally a lean Six Sigma background. And so taking those principles and applying them to a fixed fee model, I think is a really important process. And as I mentioned earlier, we've been deploying remotely for a long time, which has great benefits. And anyone who's interested in understanding those, I've written some blogs. I believe I've recorded some YouTube videos on the benefits of remotely deploying software solutions. So a lot of clients ask us if we're buying Business Central and we're going to be implementing it with an engineer-to-order solution, or for an engineer-to-order company, what is the timeline and how do we approach that? And I've prepared this timeline that I can walk through for people to give them an idea. A lot of people we occasionally also have people coming to us and they have Business Central in place, they're using it, and they just want to put the engineer-to-order module in. That's a little different. This is the full, I'm starting without it, and I don't have Business Central, and I'm implementing it along with the ETO solution. So the basic timeline that we would tell clients for a sort of standard project would be, if I have a fictional year here, 2099, hopefully I'm not still selling ERP in 2099, or maybe my robot body is selling it. If we start on January 1st, and what we would recommend doing is approximately a month of discovery sessions with the client so that we understand their business and we dig in. Now, we work with a lot of ETO companies. So what we're looking for is unexpected things we aren't expecting to see in that ETO. Then we would cover theory for another month or so. And that theory is understanding the core capabilities of the system and at a very, very high level. Not you could get in and actually use the software and do your job level, but more of it could do this or it could do that, which opens up to making some decisions. We call the next phase adjustment. This is a unique term that we use, so it means that we're adjusting the system, we're loading up data, and we're getting it ready to be for further training. And it's not a final version, it's just an interim step. Then we get into the training portion, and in the training we're actually doing legitimate, this is how you should perform these tasks training. So the theory is these are how it could be done, and the training is this is how you will do it or should do it. And then finally we have a period of time that's probably about 2 to 3 months called piloting. And the piloting phase is the phase in which we're kind of running in parallel. People sort of ask me, should we run in parallel? And the answer is no. But during piloting, you are essentially running in parallel, because what you're doing is you're running scenarios through that are already in your other ERP system, whatever you're currently using. This is the core project. It's approximately 7 to 8 months long. In that, during the different phase transitions, when we transition from one phase to the other, we usually do a phase review, but you'll notice there isn't one between training and piloting, because training flows into piloting. The point where training ends and piloting begins is unclear. It really is best described as taking the training wheels off the bike, and if you are able to start pedaling on your own, then you're piloting. The pilot event is an actual sit down with a group of people and run the scenarios through together as the entire business in one flow. And that pilot occurs. And shortly after that, there would normally be a sign off and the company would pick a go live date. So the pilot itself is a fairly large exercise with a lot of people involved. And then the go live is, or the sign off is really more of a, are there any leftover issues that were discovered during the pilot that need to be fixed? And nominally, there shouldn't be any. And then you'd pick a live at Sabre. We can do 3 go lives per month. So the customer would choose the go live date that they would proceed with after they've successfully picked or completed their sign off. So if there isn't enough time between sign off and the beginning of the next month, or those dates have been selected by somebody else, then in my example, this would be pretty typical. Generally, you want to start off in the beginning with a very small group, the smallest group of people that you can reasonably be involved in the project, because that group of people, they need to learn the theory, they need to make decisions, and they're gonna basically make sure everything's working before you bring in more. And then you're going to expand, and the expanded group are going to involve people who are probably not at the same decision-making level as the small group that started, but they are they're very knowledgeable about their job, and they can debug and tell you whether or not you've done what you were supposed to do. And once that's done, and you're pretty sure you're ready to go live, you would bring everyone else in the business who needs to be trained in and get them training on the system. And quite often you can see that sort of flows out of the pilot period into the interim between the go live and the end of the piloting. So our team at Sabre, or the ERP consulting team, is super involved in these 3 phases, because this is very much like our team is performing most of the actions and the customer's team is involved in it and part of the schedule. But the piloting and adjustment phases are very much your team. Your team is spending more of their time, much more of their time. And this is where, if anything delays a project, it's usually that the customer's team doesn't have enough time to work on it. So hopefully that was a useful exercise to see that timeline. We do find that that's very commonly requested, and so I decided to include it in this presentation. The process is it's an agile implementation approach that we take, and this is whether or not you are already using Business Central or you're purchasing Business Central and implementing ETO. We're going to suggest best practices based on our experience. We're going to test and confirm whether or not those suggestions are the right suggestions. That's your job to a large extent with our assistants. And then what typically happens is there is something that, well, this isn't really going to work for us. It's pretty close, but no cigar. Then we'll adjust that. We'll test again, and then we'll continue the cycle. So this is a continuous process improvement cycle until we've established that the system is working correctly and we can move on. So just a little bit about Business Central. Business Central is a true cloud ERP system. And I distinguish kind of like a hosted solution from a true cloud solution by a few different characteristics. First of all, it's true cloud. It's hosted by Microsoft in Microsoft data centers. There are a number of them. This is an old map of the data centers, but even this older map has a huge number of locations. So your vendor who's selling you the product is also the hosting company that's hosting it and their technology. And what else makes a cloud ERP a true cloud ERP? Well, first of all, we refer to it as serverless. you would never need to log into the server. The software runs and is device agnostic, so it'll run on a Mac, an iPad, PC, Android. You can use a Chromebook. Like it runs in a browser, and it is compatible with whatever operating system you happen to want. You don't need to remote into something in order to use it. You just open up a web page. It's evergreen, meaning that it's constantly being upgraded by the vendor, and it has an app store model. I think that's very important. Cloud software packages, the App Store model, which is like your Google Play Store, your Apple App Store, that model makes the cloud software more rich, a richer, more capable software platform than something that is a single vendor with no App Store. So Business Central, very modern software, just to sort of show you a quick view of what it looks like. This is a snapshot of the Business Central software. This is referred to as a role or a role center. And in this case, we're looking at a role center for an order entry person. So they have sales orders and purchase orders that they have on their screen. We can also look at this is a different role center for a different role within the organization. So you can see that there are different KPIs and elements on the role center. So you can see that there's also a Power BI resource that you can add in. So if you use Power BI within your company, you can add a Power BI and embed it within the role centers. So if we go back and look at the role center again, we can see that there are queues on the role center. These queues are basically tasks or to-do lists that somebody has to do. So in this case, we have a order processor, and the order processor has sales quotes, 2 sales quotes that they have to review. They have 16 sales orders that are theirs, that they're assigned to, and so therefore they have to review, et cetera. This person also handles purchasing, and so they have 19 purchase orders that are assigned to them that they would have to do. You can see that there's different KPIs also on the screen, and you can see green bars sometimes. So for instance, there's one unprocessed payment this person has that they might have to look at, and there's a green bar on it, meaning that's a fine number. But there's some overdue purchase invoices and sales invoices. There's a gold colored bar underneath it, gold being sort of yellow. So if you use a green, yellow, red system, the yellows are not as good as the green. So you can put KPIs onto the dashboard, and then the users are able to work with those KPIs, see that they are hitting or not hitting their targets. And there's a menu that exists that is specific to that role. So in this person's role, this is the menu that works best for them. I think this is actually more of an accounting role. So I'm moving my mouse wheel by accident and flipping. Okay, so we go to the role centers. The role centers, there are several different role centers. So here's a role center for one role. And at the top, again, as I mentioned, we have the menu that's specific to this role. So this is a different role center. This, I believe, is a project manager, and the project manager is responsible for jobs, which in the new version, which I have not been able to get screenshots of because Microsoft has delayed it. In the new version, this is going to refer to projects and project tasks. Microsoft is renaming this, but this is project management, and jobs are projects, job tasks, customers, items. These are appropriate to somebody in a project management role. We can also take a look at a different role center. So here's a different role center for a different person. This is purchasing agent, and in their purchasing role, they have different activities, including purchases against projects that need to be done. So these are job planning or project planning lines that need to be purchased by the purchasing agent. In this case, there's one, or they have to be acted on. There's one late. So as a different role, you get a different layout, you get different to-dos on your screen. So there are a whole bunch of them, and you can see that the menu at the top is different than the menu that the previous role had, because for purchasing agent, we need different menu choices. So just to give you some more examples of its cloud capabilities, Business Central is designed to run on multiple different types of devices. In this case, I'm running it on a simulated iPhone, but this is what it looks like if I open it up on my iPhone and I want to take a look at something. So you can see it's practical for looking up information, for being able to record data into it, to be able to put like a high volume of entering orders. You're not going to do that on your phone. But if you're on your phone and you wanted, for instance, you had a purchase order that you were receiving and you found a defect, you can actually use the camera in the phone. You could take a picture and attach the image to the purchase order where the defective part was found. So the advantage of having the mobile device architecture is that we, as Business Central customers or partners, can customize the user interface and create mobile device capable solutions for our clients, and use the mobile device with the product right out of the box without any special customization. Like, you can use it without customization. You can customize a little bit to make it even more practical, like a quality inspection capability. It integrates with Microsoft Outlook. So if you're a Microsoft Outlook user, it's got a great integration. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the Outlook Online, because I didn't want to connect this to my personal Outlook. It would connect a sample database in, and I didn't want to replace my standard one. And if I go into the Outlook Online, I can hit the three dots and I can find the Business Central app. If I have full Outlook, it's in my menu. So Business Central app will cross-reference who this email is from and look up their card, their customer card in this case. So this is Trey Research. I got an email from somebody that's associated with Trey Research, and I can look at their customer card. I can drill down. In this case, I'm looking at a sales invoice for Trey Research. I have all of their statistics and data right in front of me, and I can take a look at all of this information directly from Business Central without leaving Outlook. Now, what some clients end up doing is they get an email from somebody, and in the email there it might be a request for a quote or a request for a service part to be shipped to them. You could do that as well from Outlook. So in the sample email that the Dynamics Business Central product sends when you set up Outlook has a little sample of a sales quote that you might have to create. So if I run the create sales quote routine from within the Business Central app, it's looked up the items in that list and it's found matches. Now, it found 4 matches, 2 of which because those items are used as part of those items. When I click OK, if I select what I want and click OK, I have a sales quote. This is a sales quote. I can scroll across. Let me scroll up a bit here. I can scroll across and I can see the quantity. It's picked it up from the email. I can override the price if I want to change the price on this. This is a live sales quote that's currently in Business Central, but being viewed in Outlook. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually attach as a PDF. So I want to take the PDF file that I will be emailing to the client, and I'm going to attach it to the sales quote in Business Central. So I could just go in and open it up and see the PDF file. That'll take a second in the background. But now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to email that. If I'd emailed it right away, it would have created the PDF and allowed me to email it, but it wouldn't have saved it. So I like the idea that I'm going to save that PDF file and then email it. Here's the email that it gets created. So that's the sales quote that I created in Business Central. Here's the image of it, or the layout of the sales quote. This is a Microsoft Word template. So if you want to edit the way it looks and add extra information, maybe you want at the bottom of it, you want to put terms and conditions or other information, then because it's a Microsoft Word document, you can open it up, edit it, and then you save it back. And whenever it creates a new sales quote, it would pick up the changes you made. So it's merging the information from Business Central into this Word document to create this sales quote. You can use Excel to edit data in Business Central. So great example, if I go into Business Central, I go to items, and I want to increase, let's say, or let's just open up the information in Excel and take a look at it. This is pretty typical. Almost every ERP system today allows you to do that. So if I go in and I look at my item information, okay, I got a whole bunch of information here. That's great. But what if I want to edit it? What if I wanted to do something like increase the sell price? I'm going to edit in Excel. When I edit in Excel and I open it up, what I'm going to see is I'm going to see a blank Excel sheet with an enable editing in it. And when I click that, it is going to activate a Business Central add-on that's been added to Excel. It's just opened up on the right, Microsoft Dynamics Office. It's retrieving data. You can see a little spinny wheel on the bottom here that's retrieving data. And it's pulling in all of the items from the database into my Excel file. This is a read-write copy of the data. Now, I can't just willy-nilly change whatever I want. I have to make a, I have to change it within the rules of the system. To demonstrate that, I'm going to go across the list of all the fields. You can see there's many, many fields here, and I'm going to look for the unit price. I'm going to take that unit price and I'm going to multiply it by 1.05 and increase the price. When I paste it back into the system, I have set 3 items so that I can't update their unit price. Those 3 items won't succeed, but the rest will. So I'm going to copy this information, paste it in another sheet, and then I'm going to take and put a formula in here, just your typical Excel formula. So field times 1.05. Use a little Excel magic, double click that little box and copy that down. I'm going to copy these increased prices and paste them back over top of the old prices. I have to paste as values because I don't want the formula. And now I have these new prices. And I publish. As I mentioned, it's going to publish however many I've edited minus the 3, because the 3 have been marked as do not update. So we'll get back. There you go. So 3 of them were failed and 123 succeeded. Again, very important. It is going to enforce whatever rules there are. So I don't need to save this. What I'm going to see now is I'm going to scroll across in the Business Central system. I'm going to find the price, and I'm just going to, I'm going to hit F5 on my keyboard, just a moment, and just watch, and you'll see the prices increase. So it's as simple as that. That is how Business Central integrates with Microsoft Office. Business Central also integrates with Power BI, which I mentioned earlier when I showed that there was a Power BI integration in the application. And I recorded this previously. I executed the Power BI wizard, and I believe the user who does this needs a Power BI professional account, but users who are viewing the information in Business Central can continue using their Business Central only login. They can't edit the Power BI directly, but they can view it. So once the Power BI is configured and set up, there's a default dashboard. There's actually a few default dashboards that you can use. I've set up the one from the finance screen, so I'm getting the finance dashboard. And if I go in, I can, or maybe this was the inventory dashboard. I can go in and I can select that dashboard, and now that dashboard shows up directly in my Business Central. Business Central supports traditional manufacturing. So it'll handle inventory, bills of material. These are companies that have an expectation of carrying inventory. It handles this quite well, more or less out of the box. There are some add-ons that are very popular that companies like to add because they round it out a little bit. But it has the ability to handle a pre-created bill of material and routings and create production orders and execute them. So a production bill of material is inherently part of the system. If I'm going to make this AirPot Duo, which I think is a coffee maker, I can have the bill of material, the assembly BOM that I need to, or the bill of material that I need to produce this, and I can have routing steps. So in this case, I have an assembly department with a setup time and a run time, and I have a packing department. I can generally use this in cases where I have an expectation that my orders repeat, which is not often in the engineered order space, or it's exceedingly rare in engineered order, but where you have some engineered order companies make spare parts, they make their own components and parts. This is very useful because you can have the bill of material of those spare parts already saved, and you can just generate them, build them whenever you need to. Business Central supports sales orders. It supports the entire supply chain. So this is the supply chain. You can see all of these different types of documents exist inherently within Business Central. So you could create an RFQ, a purchase request. The estimating side, I'll say, is like any system. I think estimating in Business Central is somewhat limited. A lot of clients will do their estimating in Excel, particularly in engineer to order. That's really common. But once the estimate's done, you can create a quote. Customer can receive the quote. You can make your decision. You can cut a purchase order in Business Central. That would become a sales order. You can ship it and create a packing slip. You can generate an accounts receivable invoice. You can receive from a purchase order, create a receiving document. You can create an accounts payable invoice. You can pay, you can deposit, and it has full inventory capabilities, including the ability to have multiple warehouses and multiple locations to transfer inventory between them, to keep track of the time it will take. So if you have inventory that you take possession of in China, and then you have to ship it to yourself on your own transportation. It's pretty common that you'd have to take possession in Singapore, put it on a boat, and then track the container, but it's your product. The transfer, what they call transfer orders or warehouse transfers, are perfect for that because they keep track of, we own it, but we can't use it. Where is it? And when is it going to arrive? And it keeps track of that inside the system. Now, engineer to order, all of that's great, but engineer to order is completely different. And I'm going to highlight a bit of the differences of engineer to order through the ETO workflow. This is a swim lane diagram. So what I'm seeing here is I'm seeing different departments, and I've oversimplified. So I have my sales, my project management, my engineering, operations, delivery, and accounting. I'm making an assumption about which department does which task, and I'm very, very simplifying the tasks. So if I start with the sales department, I have an RFQ. So an RFQ, request for quotation, somebody sends it to me in the ERP system or my CRM. If I add Microsoft CRM product, I create an opportunity. I would create a quote and win the job outside the system. It's not in the ERP system. So the quote is often created in Excel or some other product, and then maybe typed up in a Word document and sent to the client. I would then probably create a project if I won the job, although I have clients who create the project when they create the opportunity and they track the cost of the quoting to the project, whether they win or lose. They want to know what it costs them to do the quoting. So anything that's in blue means that it's in the ERP. Once that project's created, typically, most of the time, it goes to an engineering team, and the engineering team designs the machine, whatever machine or whatever product it is that are being made. I'm assuming a machine design, sort of like that robot assembly system that I showed earlier. The designers are designing in CAD software, which is orange because it's not part of the ERP, but they're copying those bills of material that they create in the CAD software into what we call a draft project BOM. So this is a bill of material that contains parts, but the parts aren't in the ERP yet. They are the bill of materials in the ERP, but the parts themselves don't exist. That draft BOM will go to somebody at a higher level, often project management, to approve it. And when they approve it, the system should auto create any items that are non-standard items that were designed by the designer that are supposed to be. So quite often the designers will do their own drawings for parts that need to be fabricated by somebody else. You need to create a part number so you can order them, and you want to have it just automatic. You don't want to have to go key them in one at a time. Likewise, engineers will very frequently select parts out of catalogs from product vendors, and they want those parts to be auto-created. So that's what this is. This is taking the items that were added by the engineer to the BOM in the CAD software, flowing them into the ERP and auto-creating them. That does not mean go buy it all. Whatever you have just created, if you have to buy some of them or if you have to make some of them with your own equipment, you want to have the project manager, they want to control the pace at which they release those. So maybe the longest lead time parts will be released first. Other parts will be held on because there's always a chance a customer will do a change order. And if they do a change order, they may mess things up. So the project management team will release to planning. Now, this cycle between the machine design, the draft BOM, and the releasing to planning, this will repeat. So this cycle may occur many times in the same project as different sections of the project are worked on, as refinements are made, as customers return with more data and make change orders. Once that's released, it goes to what I call the operations side. Sometimes this is still in the project management team, but often it's a different team. And that team is responsible for figuring out, do we make this, do we buy it, or do we already have something? So if an engineer has designed something in the past and made a change to design, but nobody caught it and they ordered that part and it's been sitting on a shelf for a year, you have the ability to see what my current inventory is and determine, can I just use what I have in inventory? Once that decision is made, I'm receiving the items from somewhere, from my warehouse or from a purchase order, or I'm fabricating those things, and I'm collecting time. So the operations side is where people are putting in timesheets, as well as the engineering side. They would be collecting timesheets as well in the same system. We're doing the assembly, and ultimately we're going to ship that product. Now, that is not the end, because unlike a normal manufacturing business, which just ships it and sends an invoice, engineered orders typically have a delivery stage. And in the delivery stage, they're responsible for installing or testing and provisioning the product that they sent to the customer. So there's a field service element where your service technicians are traveling to the customer, and then you're finished. And that requires an accounting that supports progress invoicing. So a deposit invoice is almost always part of it, and a final invoice, and often intermediate progress invoices at different milestones, which they have to be controlled by project management, which essentially releases them to accounting and says, okay, accounting, these are ready to go. The accounting department needs project accounting, which is very much a WIP recognition, which could be it could be revenue recognition, or it could be cost recognition, but that monthly WIP recognition is a big part of what project accounting brings. They, of course, need your typical general ledger and vendor invoices and your deposits and cash and AR invoices and all of that stuff. And so this is the flow of an ETO. If this looks similar to what your business does, you're on the right webinar. So Sabre ETO is an Appsource app. And what Appsource is it is a basically like a Google Play Store or a Microsoft, or in this case, it's a Microsoft store where you can get add-ons for different subjects. So I've typed in manufacturing, and if I go in and I search and look for Sabre Limited, I will find solutions in Appsource, and Sabre ETO is one of those solutions. To install the product, it's really easy. You click on the free trial button. When you click on it, you get a screen that says, do you want to install it? You click again, and then you click install. This is from within Business Central. I just have to go search for it, and I hit the install button, and basically within a couple minutes, the software is set up and ready to go. You have to set it up further through a wizard that will prompt you for information, but there's not really much more to it than that. The software currently is an in-app monetization, meaning that you put your credit card inside the app. The app then registers you with Stripe, and Stripe bills you monthly for the use of the software. So we talked about opportunity within Business Central. There's an opportunity module, and you can use that as well as linking the opportunity to project. So within Business Central, if we search for opportunities, we're going to be able to choose different opportunities. I created an opportunity here for a new piece of production equipment. So this piece of production equipment I can associate with a job. So here's a job that I created for it. So now I have my opportunity and my job are linked to each other, so I can do some reporting. But I also have the ability to create the job directly from the opportunity if it doesn't exist. And I have the ability to link the opportunity to the job from the job side. In an opportunity, I can create tasks. And those tasks, they allow me to tell a person, these are the steps that we need to go through in order to complete this opportunity. Your staff can report those as completed, and then you can basically walk through the opportunity. You can have different stages within the opportunity. At each stage, you can have different tasks, and you can keep track of if you're supposed to collect certain kinds of data from your customer, if you're supposed to do certain types of activities in order to proceed and keep the sale process going, you can set those up and kind of force your employees to follow those. We need to set up a job. So when we create a job or a project in the system, those projects lack structure and there are templates. So what we typically do is we create the job. I have a job that I created. I think it's the sample machine job. Oh, here's the Elkhorn. Let's look at the Elkhorn one. And what I could do is I could copy my data. I could copy my configuration from a template. So I've created a large machine template is what I've called it. I can pick a range, but normally you can also leave this blank. I'll just put in the range of taking the task numbers. I use numerical task data. You can preload those with things like engineering hours and project management hours, which I've done. So I'm going to copy the quantities in. I'll copy dimensions just in case I need those. So once that's done, what I have essentially is a kind of a chart of accounts for my project, or what in some systems is called a cost code for a project. So let me jump back into that job again. So this new production equipment job for Elkhorn, I've got it. And what you can see is that there are some billable amounts and there are some costs. I'm going to go into what are called job planning lines. These are all of those amounts. And you can see I have $150,000 standard price. Well, I'll just change all of these to 125 and you'll see the line amount at the end is recalculating. And that's because I've already loaded percentages as decimals in. I also have these different amounts of hours for different roles. So generic project management and generic engineering hours. And I can put those in and say, okay, well, you know what? This is a little bit of a smaller job, so I'll reduce the hours. So some project management has gone in. They've determined what the price should be. It's supposed to be 125,000. They determine how many hours of each of the different types of design engineering and project management should be. And you'll notice I even have a transportation and provisioning labor amount at the end of the job, so that in the job, I can preload these canned job templates with a lot of different configuration data that I know I need on every job. What I need to do though is I need to import the BOM, because that will be different on every job. So my engineer has done design. They've created a bill of material in Excel. I want to just bring that in. I'm going to show you the simple way. There's two ways to do it. The simple way is faster and takes a lot less time, so I'll do it that way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have built a sub-assembly. So I've created an assembly molding table sub-step in this. And right now it's kind of blank. There's not much in it. It has no bill of material. And I want to import a BOM. And when I import a BOM within Sabre ETO, I have to set a field mapping. Now, I haven't done it yet. I'm going to do the bake a cake kind of presentation. I will now, having recorded this, I'll step away, set that up, and re-import it. Okay, so that's being done. What I've got is I've got an Excel spreadsheet template that came out of my CAD software, came out of SolidWorks or whatever I'm using. I am now able to take and do a mapping of that bill of material structure to the Excel file to standard tables, and here's where it is. So if I look at that tracking, you'll notice that I have more fields. Well, let me open that up. I have more fields and they're all caps, and I have them mapped to the field where they need to be imported into. So now I can go and I can find this file, which I created. So I've just opened it up just to share it with you. Those field titles are the titles that I've mapped. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to import this. Now, none of these objects, none of these items exist in the system today. So when I go and I decide to import it and go, I want to import it at the end of the list. I'm going to go find the file and bam, it's imported it. It's created the items. If they didn't already exist, if they do exist, it'll just keep whatever is there. These items have now been inserted into the database, inserted in the system. If we go take a look at one of them, let's take this weldment. I can go in and find it. And I can edit that item. Now, it doesn't have a unit price because I didn't give it a unit price on the spreadsheet. You can do that, but it's pre-configured a lot of the accounting settings. It's loaded the vendor number in, and that's looked up the vendor name. It's marked it as a purchased item because I set these up as purchased items when I imported them. There is a field on the Excel sheet that I used to designate that. I could have also set them up as a like a purchased subassembly, in other words, or a purchased design, like I designed it and I want it purchased, or a purchased catalog item, and I can track that from an accounting point of view. I can have those costs or those things tracked in different places. So now that I have a bit of a bill of material, how do I disposition it? How do I get it purchased? Well, again, we go back to the same place. Everything is being done from this one screen. And I've skipped a few slides because I didn't have time to go through them, but I had created a production order to make that one item that's blue right now. When it's blue, it means that it's being dispositioned. But by checking that checkbox that I just did, I am telling somebody in another department they need to do something. Now, what I've got is I have inventory of the first one and no inventory of the other two. So I am selecting those three items, and they're going to go to a purchasing agent or a planner. And that planner is going to have a chance to check and see, do I have inventory? And if I have inventory for it, so now I'm going to log in as a purchasing agent. So I'm using one of those role centers we talked about earlier. Going in as a purchasing agent, I see three on my to-do list. I have one that I have inventory of, and I can see quantity on hand, and two that I don't. Normally, I would send out a pick list, not just have the person immediately say, oh, let's just issue this to the job, which is what he's doing. This planner is just issuing this job, taking it out of inventory. Presumably, somebody's picked it and they've put it in the bin or in the shelving area. These other two, I don't have an inventory, but I do have a vendor assigned to them. So I can just buy them to the job. And I can do that. I could create a new purchase order, or as you can see, I can append to an existing. So I could just keep one purchase order open. This error message was there when I recorded it. It was because there was a setting that it got to the end of the line and there was no more to find, and there was a little issue that had to be fixed, but that's being dealt with. So now what I've got is I've dispositioned them. I've taken those and I've created two purchase orders, and I've created one that I've completely removed from inventory and issued to the job. So what happens in the job? Let's go back and take a look at the list of items. So again, I go back to that spot where I manage my inventory from. I manage my bill of material. And what I'm going to see is I'm going to see color highlighting. The green item has been completely issued to this job. It's there. The quantity required is now sitting, waiting to go. The other item is on a PO. I can see the PO number. I can see its line number. I can go, there's a lot of different activities I could do, by the way. And I can do different types of things like order tracking, et cetera. And if we go through that procurement list, these are the different actions that I can perform. So you can see a ready to pick status can be assigned, or a purchase quote can be assigned. I can also transfer the whole group. If I have a whole bunch of things I want bought, I just highlight them all and say transfer all. I can also drill down to any linked documents. So purchase orders are great, but once they're archived, they kind of vanish out of the system. I can still drill down to a purchase archive with that. I'm in the purchase order looking at it. So let's see what happens if I adjust the date. If I make this purchase order so its planned receipt date is early, it's not going to do anything. That's just going to be early. But if I make it late, let's see what it'll do. So I'll make it about 2 weeks after its original due date. And we're going to refresh the screen with an F5, and that line turns red. Why? Because I want it on the 10th. You can see that in the planning date column here. I wanted the items on the 10th. They're the purchase order. The buyer has updated the purchase order show that it won't be in until the 22nd. And on my Roll Center screen, one shows up as late because it's red. So the project manager can see all their late, that there's some late stuff, and they can have to drill down into it. The buyer can see that something has become late. And if they go into the actual application and they look at the screen, they can see that. Now, I also have, as I mentioned earlier, I have a production order that I have created. And what I could do is I could receive that production order and the same thing will happen. It'll turn green when I receive it. If I change the date on the production order, it'll map it and it'll turn it red as well. I don't want to get too deep into that. So we've seen how we can release to planning, how that goes down into the operations team. They can make a buy, use, or make decision. So they can also do production orders or assembly orders. There's two systems in Business Central that can be used for this. And this gets back to that more traditional manufacturing I talked about before. So I can tie them together. And if I create one of those, they will be linked to that job. And that job now is capable of bringing the costs in and keep track with that color coding, the status and whether they're on time. Let's collect time now. Let's show how the time collection is done. So we're going to go in. Rob Jolliffe is an engineer and is working on this project. Rob has an open timesheet. So this is this week's timesheet. If we open that timesheet up and we take a look at it, it has the days of the week in it. And Friday, I haven't put any time in. I can open up a little view and see that for the week, I've recorded 34 hours. So I have 10 hours on Thursday, a little bit of overtime was spent on Thursday. And you can also see on the screen that here there's an overtime that was added. So now Rob picks the job he's working on. He picks the job task he's working on. This can be filtered, so Rob only sees things that Rob can work on. And Rob puts in how many hours he's worked. He could do this. You could, by the way, put more hours under mechanical design or somewhere else. So I'm going to submit this for approval. I want my manager to review it and approve it. I happen to be my own manager, so that's going to be convenient. But Jen can also do a time card, and Jen is a shop floor employee. This is a very, very simple screen, which a time card employee on the shop floor, which is much less expensive than a full user license of Business Central, can see their timesheets. Jen can open her timesheets. She can, by the way, with this user license, you can also look up information. So if you have drawings or information that's stored in the system and you want people to be able to go look them up, that's not a problem at all. So Jen is going to do, I think she's doing some just regular assembly labor on the job. So it's the assembly labor. Yep. And once again, normally you would restrict that list to just what that person can see. And Jen's going to do 8 hours of assembly labor on the job. Now, one interesting thing that I've done to this is, and Jen would submit her timesheet as well for review. One interesting thing that I've done is I've set up Jen to auto post and Rob not to. So what happens is Rob's hours accumulate so that the accounting department can check them out, and Jen's hours flow through and immediately become part of the job cost. They'd have to be then corrected if something was wrong. So we can see that we could pre-create timesheets for future weeks. We've done that. We could also, in some of our clients have us create timesheets that automatically fill in with all the jobs that people should be working on. So they just have to fill the intersections. In this case, though, I'm going to go in and I'm going to approve both of these sheets. When I approve Rob's sheet, it does not flow through to the job. When I choose Jen's sheet, it does. That's just a setting in the background. So I've approved both. And if I were to go back into that job and take a look now, which I don't think I actually have a little video of, then I can see that the cost of the job is increased by Jen's hours. Jen's hours have flowed through. The accounting department needs to finish the posting process for Rob's job. I might be able to see it from here. So I've finished the collection of time. So jobs assembled, I would ship it. It would get installed. Basically, the time collection in the field would be done the same way as the time collection in the office or on the shop. You test provision. We have a lot of clients who use an add-on called Expand It, which gives you the ability to bring an iPad for capture of a digital signature, or you can use a mobile phone for that as well. And then the accounting department needs to do their invoicing. So the last thing I'm going to show you is there is an add-on that we do recommend. It's called the Netronic Visual Job Scheduler, and it is a Gantt chart visualization of a job. I'll give you a couple of examples of how this can be very handy. So I'm seeing a resource view here. This shows me my engineering, my project managers, and my shop floor team, and it gives me a visualization of what they're supposed to be working on. This is very high level. So what I'll do is I want to drill in and I want to look at what's called the histogram view. And the histogram view shows me based on how many people are in each department and what my load is, am I overloaded anywhere? And I can see that I have a sort of an orange colored bar for engineering hours for week 6. So week 6 has a problem. And actually there's also 5, but week 5 has the capacity, but Lena has been overloaded. Somehow Lena's double booked. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at the resource view and I'm going to expand it down and see Lena. And oh man, somebody booked Lena on the same job. Well, Marty has time because week 5 hasn't happened yet. It's week 4. Marty has time. So I'll move that to Marty and then bam, this is smoothed out. I now have everything loaded correctly. I'm good with respect to that. Another thing that you can do with this, which is a really frequent request, is you can do a job view and you can see your job as a kind of a Gantt chart view. So if I expand my job, I see the job, I can create the predecessor successors rules between the different tasks that need to be done and who's working on them. So in my example with Marty here, I can see Marty is working on this and he has to get his stuff before Catherine can work. And Sally, the welder, is going to work in week 14. I'm doing some of the welding, and Joe, the assembler, et cetera. And their tasks need to be done in these orders to be done. And you can print this. So there's a lot of different settings in the software package. You can do searching, you can fit into the view, you can scale, you can save it you could save it. So if I've changed it, it'll save those changes, but you can also save it as a PDF file. And a lot of clients want to be able to send a PDF file of the project outline to their customers. So, Caitlin, turn it back over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Rob. We'd like to thank everyone once again for attending our webinar. I'd also like to thank Rob for presenting for us today. Once again, you can find our 30-day free trial of Sabre ETO in the chat. I hope you all have a great day, and we hope to see you again soon at one of our upcoming webinars.